Hey, hang on. There we go.
All right, I think I'm unmuted. I don't know what happened there. I was
Yeah,
muted, unmuted so many times. I think we landed on
I know.
unmuted.
We both do. How are you doing, my dear friend?
I'm doing well. Excited to be here with you.
I am excited. I was looking so forward to this. There's not too many people that have studied communications, and I find that sad, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny because I think we have this feeling that like to study communicate, like we all are studies of communications. I think most of us just don't do it very purposefully, right? Like we communicate
Mhm.
all the time. I think maybe the number one problem with communication is we all assume everybody hears outside what we thought we were saying inside, right? And that's so rarely the case. So often, running events of people, it's so often I give very specific instructions and I say go, and everyone does the exact opposite of what I said. And then I'm
Mhm.
like, oh, no, okay. Yeah, I said that too. It's very difficult, to be precise when you communicate.
That's true. That's true. We're not always trained to do that. And the second thing is a lot of people are not good at listening, you know? That's half the I mean, you can give them the best directions in the world, but if they only hear a fraction of them, you're not gonna get the correct result.
Sure. I mean, I don't know that many people want to listen. I mean, whether or not you're good at listening, do we even give a damn about listening might be the more interesting question, right? Because a lot of times I think we had no intention of listening, then we didn't
We're just
listen,
going
and
through
then
the
this is a
motions, being
surprise.
polite, and then just ignoring what they say and bobbing our head and going on and do whatever we wanna do.
It's more
Yeah.
comfortable to just imagine whatever you thought they were going to say and pretend that's what they said, right?
Yes. Yes, it is. I think particularly that would be a good study of personality types, which ones would gravitate more to that.
Well, I think so. Maybe there. I'm sure there would be certain personality types that gravitate more. I think pretty much all of us are going to do that. They will all kind of gravitate to, because we want to keep our worldview, right? I was an elected official,
Mhm.
and when I did that, I had this really crazy idea. Four-way stops are not really keeping you safe in neighborhoods. This is going to bother a lot of people just right out of the gate. Like, I realized as an elected official that nobody loves anything more than the stop sign at their house. They think that that's meant. Now there are places that they keep
Ah.
you safe, right? Where there's blind corners. I
Sure,
mean, there are
sure.
places where they're very, but generally a four-way stop in a neighborhood is crazy. You could just have two-way stops, right? Because four-way stops wear out your brakes, they wear out your transmission, they were like everybody has a huge cost for these things, and there's really no safety. Like I started looking into it, and I realized like that's not really where kids are getting hit. Like people are pretty much paying attention in the intersections where kids are getting hit is coming out of their driveway or coming off the sidewalk, in front of the house.
Mhm.
I mean, we're not going to put a stop sign in front of every driveway. So I thought, well, shoot, we'll fix this, right? And
Right.
of all the things that I did as a councilman, I never thought four-way stops would be the thing to get me lynched. But for a while, I was really, I mean, people showed up in mass to protest these stop signs, and it's funny because it's something you don't think a lot about, right? Like people have an
Right.
impression, they have an impression about what a stop sign does and why it's there. But
Mhm.
I mean, not a lot of people have spent 2 or 3 8-hour days watching a stop sign because when you're an elected, I was like, hey, I don't see how this works. Like I read all the stuff about it, but there's nothing really replaces just sitting there and watching and saying, okay, what is
Okay.
this doing? What is this not doing? And so
Are
I
they
did a lot of
stopping?
research. And my problem was I tried to handle them all at one time, right? I had a colleague who had gotten rid of all the ones in his district, but he did them like two at a time.
Mhm.
So but I did them all at a time, which was crazy. But I was young and stupid. And so anyway, this huge debate erupts. Like people are there, really. Like I mean, it turned into like my own church. This is a true story. The church I was attending sent out a mass email saying that I was listening to the wrong spirit and was endangering the lives of our children. Like I wanted to kill kids basically because I wanted to get rid of these stop signs. So it's I was like, okay, I
That's
remember
extreme.
calling the pastor and be like, hey, man, I go here. Like you could have called me. Like we didn't need to send a mass email immediately, right? We could have talked a
You
little,
could have,
but
yeah, that's harsh.
that's
Very
fine.
harsh.
But something interesting happened though at the end of that, right? So there's a guy, man, I don't know why I'm drawing a blank on his name. Really good dude, lawyer, local to town. He got up and kind of spoke on behalf of the homeowners, and I was being very vehement, and I said, listen, those four-way stop signs are not saving your kids. That's not where kids are getting hurt. If we were going to
Mhm.
put a sign where kids are getting hurt, you'd have one at every house, which is crazy. I will tell you that the only thing that stop sign is doing is reinforcing a false sense of security in your mind. So it's a false sense of security that your kids are safe because that's there. Because
Okay.
it's not even slowing the speeders down because they just run right through them.
Right.
And his response though taught me a lot about people. And his response was, well, my sense of security is important to me, false or otherwise.
So give it back.
And I realized what I had done wrong. Yeah, what I had done wrong is I had threatened people, even though it was a false sense of security. It was a sense of security, and I was
They
messing with
chose
them,
it. They
right? I
chose
was
it.
just messing,
Yeah.
and they would rather hang on to the thing that objectively isn't true to maintain their sense of security. Because if it turns out that that's not true, then what
Mhm.
else isn't true? And so
Yeah.
listening to someone is dangerous because if it turns out that they have a point, then you may have to change something about yourself, and that's going to take a ton of energy and effort and shifting. And why would we want to do that? Your mind is really programmed to
Yeah.
say don't do that. That's a lot of energy, so just don't
Yeah.
listen.
I think yeah, I think I agree with you that this is running rampant right now across
So
all
I don't think that
divides.
it's new, so let's be
Yeah.
careful. I
Okay.
don't think that it's new. It always ran rampant. Here's what's different. We
Okay.
have created a fake world called the internet. We're on it right now, right? I have almost no, like, if whoever's listening, if you go look at my socials, I'm terrible at social media. I hate it. But I'm realizing that this is where the conversation is, so you can't avoid it. But
Yeah.
we've created this fake world that sits on top of the real world. And it's a
Mhm.
really cool fake world that lets us interact with people from the real world that we knew, and billions of other people will never know,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so I think what's different is in the fake world, we can gather with a whole bunch of people who agree with us only. In the real
Right.
world, it's very difficult to do that, right? Like
Yeah.
if my mom and dad were in an argument and I'm in the living room and they kind of look to me to settle the argument, I can't just go find 200 people who agree with me, bring them in the room and have that
Yeah.
conversation. But with the internet, you can.
You
And so
can
you can
create
just,
any echo chamber you want and just
yes,
pick a different site, and there's so many.
the earth is flat, the unicorns are real,
Mm.
it just,
Yeah.
there's no end of, there's just no end of it.
Mhm.
Truth is, it's kind of fun also
Yeah.
because then you get this group of people. I mean, hey, who doesn't want a group of people who never tell them anything bad about themselves? But then it
Because
used to
they don't
be,
know them. They
well,
don't
it used to
really
be
know
that the
them. That's
emperor
the
had
thing.
no clothes, right? Like that was the story. The
Yeah.
emperor has no clothes because once you get high up, once you're the ruler, nobody really tells you the truth anymore, right? So
Yeah.
the emperor had no clothes was a great story for its day. What's happening right now is none of us have clothes. We're all naked and we are all pretending that the clothes are great. Like I mean, it's because we can all go to the people who just tell us yes.
Tell me that, so last time you were visiting us and we had brunch, and you said this powerful thing about the different ways that men and women think, because you asked about makeup. Do you
Sure.
remember?
Okay. So I heard,
Can't tell
man,
me that.
I don't know who said this. I really probably should look it up. And I don't even know. Maybe I didn't hear it. Sometimes I'm just really dangerous.
Maybe it's a
I
Kevin
just really am
original.
nervous about taking credit for something that isn't. Maybe I didn't hear this, but I don't
Fair.
want to say I made this up. I'm pretty sure I heard this, but men value what they see and women value what they hear. So women
Um,
will always wear makeup and men will
mhm.
always lie. I heard this and it set my mind on fire, right? It started this whole giant rabbit hole of wow, that is
And
so
it's so
true.
true. It's
That
so
is so true,
true.
right? Like it
Women
just
hate the lie, but they value the other things. We're trained to be more intrinsically vain in some
right.
respects,
And
and
as long as you just always
society
have makeup on,
reinforces it.
as long as you just always have makeup on, it's real, right?
That's right. That's
I mean,
right.
it is really there. I mean, that's
Yeah.
not really the color of your lips or whatever, but that it is really there.
Yeah.
And as long as you just keep reapplying, it's there, right? So it's that statement sent me down a long rabbit hole of like, wow, that's so true. Like there's a lot of truth to that.
Yeah.
Why, right? And so, I mean, I think the main thing to start with is understanding that with men and women,
Mhm.
we are very often having conversations where we understand all the words, right? So then we think we understand one another, but we're having extremely different conversations. So we're not actually saying, even though I understand, hey, how you doing? How was your day?
Right.
That hits me a certain way, and the intent of that conversation is different. So I think I'm having a conversation where the answer to that question matters, and really nothing of the sort is true. Really, that conversation is just an excuse to have an exchange,
Mhm.
right? And so we often do this, especially in marriage. The longer you've been with someone, the more true this is because the more history you have of, well, you already know how things are going to go, right? The truth
Right.
is, if you've been with someone for 15 years,
Mhm.
let's say 95% accuracy, you can predict what they're going to do or what they're
Yeah.
going to say or what they're going to
Yeah.
think. And you're probably right, maybe better than that. The problem is that 5% that's left over is where all the growth happens. And so sometimes we pigeonhole our partner because we 95% know what they're going to say. So then we say it for them and oops, except we, didn't allow, they actually had a new thought. Maybe
Mhm.
this is the 1,000th time you said that. And maybe this is the first time they're realizing what you mean. But because we don't even let them say that, we don't get to experience that growth. We
Okay.
don't get to experience that change. We have to allow people to grow, like in relationships and whatever. Um, but the
I
bottom line is men and women communicate very differently.
I always feel
Um,
like men are very object or problem solving oriented, and women are more detail oriented, and then also more emotional with their
so okay,
descriptions and what they're seeking to receive.
and you can kind of boil this down. I'm
Mhm.
gonna tell you this, okay?
Yep.
Here's this will be hard to believe, and if whoever's watching, good luck deciphering this one. I can tell you the difference between men and women by describing one event, which is
Oh,
a shark feeding frenzy. A shark feeding frenzy tells the whole story. I'll tell you what that means in a minute, right? but but yeah, if you think about it, how are men and women the same? I mean, we're all human beings. We all have minds. We all have,
sure.
generally the same parts, 90% or so.
Yeah.
Um, but men are testosterone based animals.
Yes.
Like our base chemical, like the thing that drives us testosterone. And testosterone is a chemical of results, of do, of go,
Mhm.
of
Mhm.
get up, go, make it happen,
Mhm.
unyielding, right? Women are estrogen based animals. Estrogen is the chemical of community, of connection, of growing things, right?
Yeah.
You when you get down to it, and I don't want to oversimplify, right? So it there are two basic sexes. Ideally, there are two sexes. I know that there are these like 1 in a billion messes. Like there
I
are people who are born with
there are
a uterus and a
intersex and
penis, and
yeah,
I mean, and
I got you.
I don't want them to just be quashed in all the silliness that I think is happening right now.
Yeah,
Because
I
that's
know.
so, but ideally, like generally, someone is either
Sorry, cough
estrogen or
drop.
testosterone based, right?
Mhm.
If you're a testosterone based animal, man, okay, that's how I'm going to simplify it here.
I like it.
Um, you're going to arrange everything about results,
Mhm.
and you're going to create community by getting results.
Mhm.
So for men, we believe that we become worthy of community, or community is created through results. So where do men find brotherhood? You know, they look at it like, oh, I'm a
Mm,
policeman, I'm a fireman, I'm a salesman.
team.
This result that I create then makes a team of people who create the same result, and that's a
Okay.
community.
Does that also what attracts them innately to marriage and family? Is that
Well,
viewed as creating their own little team,
well, I mean, yeah,
perhaps?
it's a massive result, right? And
Mhm.
creating the next generation is a massive
Mhm.
result. So let me get to the shark story, because I think it's
Okay.
important and indicative. Right? So, so when you watch a shark feeding frenzy, it looks like chaos, right? I mean, there's this food dropping, the sharks are going nuts, they're swimming in circles. It's just a frenzy, right? That's why we call it a feeding frenzy, right? And it looks chaotic, it looks
Mhm.
random. I mean, even sharks will eat each other, right? They're
Yeah.
eating whatever it
Yeah.
is, but then they start eating each other. Wow, how out of control are the sharks, right?
Mhm.
Not exactly. So
Hmm.
scientists took a video of the feeding frenzy from the bottom and then slowed it way down and watched what was happening. And here's what's crazy. Guess which shark took the first bite of the food? The
The
biggest shark.
female, right?
Nope, the biggest. Guess who took a bite of the second bite? The second biggest.
Mhm.
Guess who took the third bite?
Right.
Even if there's 40 sharks, they go
Mhm.
1 to 40 and then they start over. Now,
Oh,
how do sharks get eaten in a feeding frenzy, right? Here's what happens. The eighth biggest shark eats before the third biggest shark. Guess what the third biggest shark then does?
you don't
Eats the
cut in
eighth biggest
line.
shark. Yeah, hey man. Nope. It isn't
No
an
cutting.
accident.
Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't an accident.
I've never
It
heard
was
this. This is great.
it was very much you ate out of turn. Okay. Now,
Punishment.
I tell this story all the time. For you, it's like fascinating. You're like, oh, that's cool.
Mhm.
Every guy that I tell the story to, like when I do this in groups of men, like, oh yeah, obviously, because that's how we work. We're
Right.
very we're very
Right.
pecking order, because what does testosterone do? It goes up and down, right?
Okay.
And we're very pecking order oriented. We start talking about engineering and I'm in a group of guys, we'll pretty much kind of look around and each of us will have a list in our head of who's the top dog and then how it cycles down from there. Right. It's just
Hmm.
really, really quick. Like we just do it naturally. Like if someone starts talking about
Yeah.
boxing and you look around, okay, well, he's probably the biggest badass and there's second. And we're kind of cool with not being the best because we know there's some other place that we can be the best, right? So we're
Right.
we're very cool that testosterone, we don't have to be number one, but we have to understand what our position is, or we have to fight. So when men
Mhm.
fight, it's because they have a disagreement about the position. Like, am I number one? Am I number two?
So
And that's why men are such good friends almost immediately after a fight, is because once the
that's what I was
fight's
gonna
over,
bring up because
yeah,
they
once
they'll
the
go
fight's
out and
over,
they'll have a scuffle, and then
and
they'll
then it's
go
like,
have a
okay,
beer,
you
and they're
won, so
fine.
you're bigger. Yeah, like
Women,
so,
if we get to a scuffle, we're done with you. That bitch is dead to
right.
us.
And
We're
I'm going to tell
we're
you,
done.
right, but I'm
If
going to
it
tell you
goes to that
exactly why.
level,
Yeah, but that is estrogen.
right? Because to us, it's
Testosterone,
it's betrayal,
testosterone,
and why would I
testosterone
have that around? Mhm.
spikes and craters, and so
Interesting.
what happens when so let's say Herschel and I get in a big fight
Right?
because let's say he beats me up. We're cool now. Why? Because I know, okay, he's number one, I'm number two. All right.
Let's not even
Okay.
take into account you have 50 pounds of muscle.
Well, yeah, but
You're
who knows?
huge.
Like, but my testosterone when he beats me up will go down, and I'll become
Oh,
very like compliant. His
okay.
testosterone
So
will
it
rocket.
does it
The actual moment to moment level will change.
does it
Like
adjust like adrenaline?
I don't know if it's exactly like a drum, but you can like take guys in a stadium during a
Uh-huh.
football game at key moments of the thing and test like their spit and figure out where they are testosterone wise, and it goes up and down, up and down.
Yeah, because estrogen
It
doesn't.
that
Like,
allows us to what? That allows us to tuck tail, right? Think about
okay.
it. In the wild,
Okay.
predators have an off switch. So predators, when they
Okay.
fight, have an off switch. They can turn it off because otherwise they just kill each other all the time. Every disagreement would be a fight to
Right.
the death.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Deer and prey, they don't have that. They just have
Mm,
run. When the deer
mm.
starts to fight, this is why you find deer like killing each other or locked to the point that
Yeah,
once
like
they
the
start,
bucks. I've seen video of bucks that do that, and I'm like, why did they
and
do
they
that?
they don't have an off switch because they're prey. They're not predators. They're not built to do that. So
Oh.
when you go to like ranches that raise deer and all, they have to separate
Versus
them.
wolves or cat species that are, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, when a
I'm learning
donkey
so
like
much.
hits a coyote, it smashes it into the ground over, and it doesn't stop until it's like exhausted. It's not a okay, the job is done, or oh, that's enough, or I made it. Like
Mm,
predators have that, and I'm not saying men are predators. I'm just saying testosterone is very pecking order, very
mhm,
action
mhm,
oriented,
mhm,
right?
mhm.
And when men are fighting, it's because we disagree. Who's number one? Who's number three? What like? Then once we figure that out, cool. Here's a fun evidence of that, right?
Okay.
Men don't like to have serious conversations about sex with each other. It's almost always either bragging or joking.
I was
Why?
gonna say locker room talk, but that's not
No, no, no,
serious. I
no.
see.
That's about having sex with other. That again, that's bragging or laughing, right? Why
Okay.
do we go immediately to brag? Because I mean, you get a group of women together, you guys can have a talk about sex, and it
Oh,
can
yeah.
be serious. I mean,
Yeah.
you might tell
Yeah.
jokes or whatever, but you can easily have that conversation.
Usually
Well,
from a medical lens, they do it frequently.
think about this: if I'm going
Mhm.
to have a conversation with a group of 6 guys about sexual performance,
Mm.
guess what I'm going to have to do?
Lie.
Nope. I'm gonna have to make a pecking order. I'm gonna have to make a pecking order. In order to do that, I'm gonna have some really uncomfortable thoughts that I don't really want to have about my friends. And so I just tell a
Ah,
joke or I just start bragging or like in other words, it's an uncomfortable pecking order to
gotcha.
create. And I don't really want to know and I certainly don't want to fight about it. So just avoid it. Just if I hurry
Okay.
and make a joke, it breaks the tension and we can talk about something else.
Gotcha.
Right.
Okay.
Again, that's testosterone. Testosterone is about results. Testosterone is,
Mhm.
you can even see it in how our like reproduction happens, right? How many sperm does it take to make a baby? Yeah. And how many do we send? All of them, whatever we can send at the
Hundreds.
moment, 100 million,
Hundreds.
right? Like it's
Yeah.
it's millions, millions and millions, right? We need one,
Mhm.
and we're like, send them all. How many you got? Send all that, right? That's how we do it. Because why? Because what's important is the result. If we waste some stuff in the meantime, whatever, we need the result. How many eggs does it take to make a baby? And how many do you send? Usually one,
1. Yeah.
sometimes two,
We are
sometimes.
much efficient number game.
Here's what's fun. What happens when the sperm and the egg come together?
Mhm.
Your body, female estrogen-based miracle animal,
Mhm.
takes one cell plus one cell and makes trillions of cells in life.
It is amazing.
Right? It creates a community.
Yeah.
From just one reaction, it creates community. Estrogen is the chemical of community, of bonding, right?
Okay, I
So
see where you
so
okay.
estrogen will solve problems with community. So estrogen, the highest value to an estrogen based animal is community, right?
Mm,
And then results come from the community. For me, testosterone based animal, results are the most important thing, and results create community.
okay.
Now, same two elements in a different order, but it creates totally different conversations.
Mm,
Right? I want results, and that's going to make me either worthy of or I be able to create a community with that. You want community, and the community to be for the community to be successful and safe and happy, it needs results.
mhm.
So I can give you a common fight between partners, but let me start with if you're driving down the street and I'm driving down the street and we get a flat tire, right?
Mhm.
You hear it, boom, 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 and you pull over. The first thing you're thinking of as an estrogen based animal, and look, guys, this is generalities, right? This isn't every single
Sure,
situation, but I mean, generally,
sure.
is who to call. And the first thing I'm thinking about is tools. Do I have a jack? Do I have this? Is it
Mhm.
worth it for me to change it? Is there space to change it? Would I rather just call someone because then I could do something else? Like I'm going to results. How do I get the result? Right. And you're going to go more to who do I call? Here's the fun part. Most of us, right? Most women are married to men. And so who do they want to call? The testosterone based animal who's
Yeah.
so happy to have what? A result. They're like, oh, change the time. I could do that. Hold
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
Just sit there. We're excited to do it because that's a result that makes us worthy of the community.
Mhm.
It's a really interesting thing, right? It's a really interesting way of looking at it. So with estrogen, it's like, hey, community produces results.
Mhm.
And with testosterone, it's results then produce community. Now, what does that look like in
Okay.
day-to-day life?
Hmm.
Right. And one of the things that looks like is this. Your husband comes home from being out of town for 3 days, right? You haven't seen him in
Right.
a while. You walk up and you're like, hey, how was your trip?
Mhm.
Now you're estrogen based. You're trying to create what? Community.
Mhm.
You don't really give a damn what his answer is. What you really give a damn about is that he answers and then you say something back and then there's an
That's
exchange,
true.
right? It is a
That's true.
bid for community, right?
When he gives me 2-sentence answers, that always pisses me off
Right.
because
Because he's
he'll be like, "Yes, no, kinda, blah, blah, blah," and I'm like, he will it could be an hour conversation he'll have about business or something, and he will condense it down to literally 2 short sentences, and I'm like, I need more than that.
yeah. And
And
so
I've gotten in
what's
the habit of
happening?
just staring at him going, I need you to say more than that.
Yeah. So
I need
what's
you to work
happening
on
there?
this.
What's happening there is you're asking a question
Hmm.
and he is saying, "Oh, she wants a result. She wants the answer." Perfect. She asked me, "How was the trip?" And then
Hmm.
a lot of times we'll say a 3-word answer, but we'll say it after a pause because we're really considering. We're like, "Oh, we want to
Hmm.
get this right. Like, we really want to get this
Hmm.
right." Okay. And so hey, good. Now we're feeling like we really accomplished something. Why? Because you wanted a result, which was the answer, and we gave it to you. And so
Hmm.
we're in a good moment. The problem is you didn't really want the result. You wanted the exchange. You wanted the community, right? So what happens? You get frustrated, right? And so you'll do some weird follow up. Usually, like, well, what else? Like, well,
I
what
so
color
do
was the rental
this.
car? Yeah, no, it's
I
all of us,
so
right?
do this all the time.
So you start digging, right? Well, what, how was the rental car, right? Like you just, whatever, you're just trying to, it doesn't, to you, it doesn't matter what the thing is. You just want to exchange. So then
Hmm.
he's like, oh, okay, why does that matter? Well, okay, well, red. And then by about the third follow up question you ask, he starts to feel something that he's the most afraid of in the world. And he starts to get angry because now he's realizing he's producing the wrong result, right? Because what testosterone energy, like men, testosterone based animals,
Hmm.
what
Yep.
we are the most afraid of is impotence, is not being
Mm,
able to produce a result.
right.
That is
Right.
the death of us, right?
Yeah.
Not just sexual impotence, but I mean,
Oh
if we
yeah.
can't produce a result, then what the hell are we? Like we're
Right.
supposed to produce results.
Yep.
So when on the third follow up, he's getting the idea that he screwed this up, that he is not producing the result you want, but he doesn't see necessarily what it is. He just knows he's getting it wrong. So he will start to get agitated, right? Now, when he starts to get agitated, he will start to shut down or close doors between you, right? Now,
Right.
here's what's fun. Guess
Yeah.
what the estrogen based animal is the most afraid of? Being locked out of or the collapse of community. So when
Mm,
he starts to shut down because he's angry because he can't, he's saying, man, I'm impotent anyway. I'm not going to do this anymore. So him shutting off now does what? Closes the community. It
hmm.
basically says, nope, you're not getting community. What is an estrogen based animal most afraid of? Either a lack of community or ostracization, right? Of being thrown
Right.
out of the community.
Right. We
Here's the
typically
weirdest
don't
thing.
do well when they start to shut down. That's a huge red flag, and then we go into overdrive typically to ask
Yep.
more
There's a
questions.
short
What's
period of
wrong? Why are
overdrive.
you?
Yep.
Then
And
we step
then
it up.
tell me if this sounds familiar.
I
And
totally
then
do this.
yep. And then you have this thought of like, oh, he's not shutting me out. I'm shutting him out. And then you do something to shut, like, because it's
Yes.
better if you lock him out. You won't be locked out of community. He can be locked out. And
Mhm.
now he's sleeping on the couch for giving you the answer you wanted in his mind, right? In your mind, he's sleeping on the couch because he didn't create community. But in his mind, I answered a damn question and I'm sleeping on the couch. I can't win. He's feeling impotent. You're feeling a lack of community, right?
Yeah.
Whoops. Were we ever having the same conversation? No. Like we were never, ever, ever having the same conversation. Even just, hey, how was your day? The reason that everybody understands the words are, hey, how was your day? It was fine. But
Right.
you have to see the players and what they think,
Yeah.
right? This is
Yeah.
a big deal. For some of you guys out there, you'll hear like I hear women complain sometimes like, well, why doesn't my husband ever do the dishes? And I'm like, well, has he ever tried? Well, yeah, he did it so bad, right? That one time, here's what happens. We'll try that one time. We get
Mhm.
fussed for like, we dried them upside down or we do some
Yeah.
dumb things because
It's
we just,
streaked. Who knows?
yeah, because especially when you first get together, right? Because you have how your mom taught you and then she has how her mom taught you. And then which the right way? I don't know. You negotiate that, right?
Mhm.
And so, but once we do it wrong, we think we've created a result. So we're excited because we like that means we belong in the community. And
Uh-huh.
when someone comes around and says, "Oh, you totally screwed that up," Now we feel that impotence. And here's the crazy thing: we would rather not try again than feel that impotence again.
Mm.
This happens in a sexual pursuit pattern a lot with couples, where he says that we don't have sex enough, but he's never pursuing me, right? Because he's so screwed up with the rejection. He doesn't know how to handle the rejection. It feels like impotence. It feels
Ah,
like I can't do this. So not trying for a week is easier to swallow, right? Now that sounds like ego. Now, partly it is. Okay. So I'm not saying there's no ego involved there, but also remember, we're results based animals. So I try something
right.
10 times and I fail 10 times. I'm going to be a lot more gun shy. It hurts me more to not be able to get it. And I don't
Okay.
mean hurts me more like on that particular thing. It's just over time, we'll just stop trying. That's not
Right.
okay. That's not an
No matter
excuse.
what the action. Yeah.
Yeah, whatever it
I
is.
can I can see that.
Because,
I
hey,
can
what's the
see that
point?
in my own marriage. I've watched him, different things, even outside things. I'm not saying things in our
Yeah, yeah.
dynamic, but even things at work, if he tried a certain number and then he would just avoid it, you know.
The ultimate kid story or whatever that like really correlates with this is Rapunzel. Rapunzel is really about this. And I used to teach Rapunzel to women in women's groups, talking about how dumb Rapunzel is, right? Like how Rapunzel is a crazy little story, um, where a woman has to. Oops, I don't know what's
I
happening.
haven't I
There we
have
go.
no idea what happened to my camera. Hang on. Keep going.
As long as you're there, I'm fine.
This is the
Um,
first. It's never done this.
but
It
yeah,
really
so
hasn't.
Rapunzel's a strange little story, right? Because it's like, to get rescued, she has to let her hair down and let a guy in like 300 pounds of armor climb her hair to tie her hair to something so he can carry her down her hair with
Mhm.
her weight and his weight. And then she's safe, right? Then she's free. That's weird. Like, that's kind of crazy.
That's very
Honestly,
weird.
she didn't need the extra 300 pounds. She didn't, she could have tied her hair to the bed. This is the newest Disney version of this, right? Is all about this. Like, she could have just tied her own hair and then gone out and found whoever she wants. But for a long time, I taught that was so dumb. But then I realized that actually Rapunzel's smarter than me.
She
The parable, the story is smarter than I am, because what did Rapunzel want in the first place?
Bear with me. I had to switch cameras, so
Oh, no problem.
that's
No
all
worries.
kooky.
No worries.
I don't know why my good camera went out suddenly.
So the question is, what did Rapunzel want in the first place? Did she want freedom or did she want community? Right? Because
I think freedom,
her way of
maybe.
getting freedom is kind of,
Okay.
is she really free? But her
Mm,
way of creating community was amazing. I put my hair down. This guy climbs up. Now he's done something. Now we have a bond. Now it's not me alone against the world. It's me and him against the world. And that feels good because there's a community there. And I've created community with this scenario. Now, Prince Charming gets what he wants too, right? Which is to do something that makes him worthy of that whole connection.
mhm.
And so that becomes important for him. He doesn't just stumble upon somebody. I can do this and then move on.
Okay.
So it's a really interesting parable that kind of goes along with this. And this is just a framework to think, guys.
Mhm.
I'm not saying like here's the science. And I mean, there is a lot of science to back this up, but it's really just a framework of thinking that works really, really well. I've coached a lot of people, I've coached a lot of couples, and this framework works.
Okay.
As if you're coming in as the woman, you're coming in as the man. As if you're the man, you need to constantly think about community to
Mhm.
help figure that out. And if you're the woman, constantly remember he was trying to produce a result. To let him, like, it's not give him results, not do it for him, but there has to be a win in there. There has to be a result. It can't. We don't understand the back and forth.
Mm.
We understand it, but we don't get anything out of it. There's no rise, right? Like,
Mhm.
again, I keep talking about sexual things, but because it's sexual, it's very rooted in this. Like, if I
Mhm.
asked a group of guys, hey, if you had sex and you did an orgasm, the first thing they'll say is, well, then I didn't have sex, because the result is the thing. I mean,
Really?
oh yeah,
Wow.
100%. That's more women could use that standard, right? But that's most guys. It's like, hey, you have sex 10 times, and you don't orgasm, then there'll be a very vehement argument about whether or not sex was actually had. Intercourse, sure, but the completion
That's
is. the thing,
Wow.
right? Where with
See,
women it's
I
not
don't
because
have brothers or anything, so I don't, I don't get a lot of these conversations. I enjoy
no,
them.
but with women, obviously
Yeah.
that's not true 100%.
No.
And
All of it
although
counts with
it's
women.
kind of changing, but what's interesting is the
Mhm.
way women are changing right now, the way
Mhm.
that women have changed in the modern world is what? It's more testosterone based. And
Yeah.
it's wearing them out. Why? You don't have enough of it.
Right.
Like women have to end up being testosterone based in a corporate environment. They have to be we simplify the testosterone part of that to like they got to act like the man, and so you see a ton of really powerful
Mhm.
driven women who are always overwhelmed.
Right.
Why? Well, they have like 20% of the go juice.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have
And the
the
older
amount
you
of that
get,
chemical.
you drop, not just as very few people really talk about it, but like when I went in for an overhaul a year ago with all my hormone levels, and I had them really test everything in depth. My estrogen was great, but my testosterone, they said, well, for a woman, if you want to have more high functioning at your age, your testosterone, I think they said it should have been like 250. Now,
Mhm.
men, we're talking 800 plus. So
But most men today are about 250. That's what's crazy.
my level was 10.
Yeah, well, that'll
And
be.
I was like,
I
"Oh,
bet it was
that
hard to
could
get
be
out of
why
bed.
I'm tired a lot."
Yeah, I bet it was hard to get out of bed. Is
It
that
was
that's
very
your
hard
go
to get out of
juice?
bed.
That's your go juice. I mean,
Yeah, and
that
my
drive to
body just
action.
was not producing any of it at
Yeah,
all.
and so why this matters in couples, why this matters in our dynamics is
Mhm.
we're not fundamentally chasing the same thing, but we're a really good match for one
No.
another because we can be. Like it really works to have a person who wants to who thinks results create the community and a person who says the community creates the results. It's a really cool complementary thing when you think about it.
Mhm.
Because frankly, and being overly simplistic, when the bad guy comes, I will chase the bad guy to kill him at the expense of the kid. I'll forget the kids are even there at a moment, and I'll chase the
Ah,
bad guy down the road, and the kids get left behind. Where mom is not going to leave the kids. If she fights the bad
no,
guy, it's going to be over top of the kids or holding the
no.
kids, right? But you need both of those elements in the family. When you think about it, you need that.
Yeah,
You need
yeah,
both. You
to
need the person who
protect.
will lance out and go, and you need the person who will constantly maintain. So it's a very complementary system.
Hmm,
Surprise, right? I mean,
yeah,
ancient people were much smarter than we give them credit for. I mean, they
they
just
were
were.
very, very onto that. No, I've always said it, like, I think marriage is a beautiful thing because I feel like we were designed to complement. We are the yin and the yang, and the older I get, the more I see this. When I was
Uh,
younger, I was indoctrinated into the ideology of I don't need a man and blah blah. Can I survive without one? Sure.
Not
Would I
very
be
well, and
having
not for
very
long. No,
no,
and I
and
mean that. I mean
that's
that
the thing.
seriously.
Like
Like
I need him. I love him, but he takes care of so many things that make my life so much easier. And then I do the same thing for him,
it,
you know.
it's we've just gotten to the point of silliness with it because it's you take away all of the men, you have a big problem. The earth
Yes.
has a first off, you're not going
Yes.
to be able to
We need
reproduce. That like at the very base level,
Yep.
we're done. Game's locked. You're going to die with your girlfriends, maybe if you can keep them, because you're not the best at that. Once you guys bother each other, maybe they're going to die in a bunch of smaller trials. Just the truth, right? Just
Mhm.
look around. It's 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 silly to say that we don't need each other. Now, do you need any particular man? No, I get it. And are there particular men who really nobody should need, and maybe they ought not to have been born? 100%. Okay, so I'm not talking about the particular ones. I get it. There's plenty of
Yeah.
bad examples on both
Yeah.
sides of that fence. But do you need it? Yes, because you couldn't. Like it's so silly. Do you need a man, Mary? Tell me that you didn't need a father. And even if he died the second
Yeah.
after you were born, you needed him to be born.
Yep. Well, and I had a great example of a father. So he made a huge impact in my life. And he and my mother were a wonderful example of a healthy relationship. So the older I got, the easier it was for me to sort out not great guys. And I
Mhm.
just kind of naturally did that. So, like, having fathers in the home, and I mean, it is so important for both the
Here's a
kids. You
crazy
need it.
statistic. Here's a crazy statistic. Go look this
Mm,
up. Forever we've said like, kids with both parents in the home are better off than single parent
Right.
homes. Right?
They're always more successful.
It's not true. Go look up single parent homes where the single parent is the dad. They not only equal but often outperform the two parent homes.
Really?
So when you go
Because it's
really look at the
results.
data, when you go really look at the data, it's kids perform better with a strong male presence in the home.
Right. A
Meaning
good
strong by meaning
right.
like not a
Sure.
destructive. Yeah, I mean
Sure.
having an
Sure.
asshole abusive alcoholic father is not gonna
Sure.
that didn't. But I'm saying it really is crazy. Go look, but we don't talk about that. I don't know. I guess it doesn't fit the narrative. But if you go look at single parent homes and you just isolate the male single parent
Yeah.
homes, which there's a lot fewer of,
Yeah.
right? But there's a lot fewer of, partly because of this drive, partly because the legal system, having been divorced, partly because the legal system is so tilted towards mothers that's
Yes,
just what it is.
it
Almost like
is.
that's the default is
Yeah.
mom's the best person, whether that's true or not, in most states. And I'm glad to see that changing. We're starting to make more sane decisions. But I just go look it up. I mean, the facts are there. Like that,
Yeah.
and I'm a big proponent of having two parents in the home because
Yeah.
again, you have that community base and you have that results base, and sometimes kids need to be driven to just go no matter how
Yep.
they're feeling, and sometimes they need to be held and to know that they're safe in
Sure.
community.
Sure.
um and so you need both.
How do you coach couples in communicating?
So
Like,
um
how do you
yeah.
do that? Because I know you do.
Yeah, we pick your favorite fight. You're gonna have a favorite fight, whatever it is. Like whatever your favorite fight is, you're gonna have it, and we'll just start to pick it apart. One of the things we do that's different, my wife, Coach Witt, and I, is we'll actually have calls, me, her, you, and your spouse, right? So there's four of us.
Oh, okay.
So a couples coaching call, and we'll parse through some things, and it's very different than counseling. So let me first, I love counselors. Side note, I have one, Sharon. She's amazing, and has made my life better. Counseling is a lot about like looking at patterns of communication, looking at the past and trying to heal it, right?
Hmm.
Coaching is not
Right.
about that. Coaching is about, hey, where are we and where do we want to go?
Right.
Right. Ultimately, what's a coach? A coach is a horse-drawn carriage, usually closed, meaning it's to pick you up and bring you somewhere. That's it. That's what coaches are for.
Results.
Yeah, we're here. It's very testosterone based, right? Surprise.
Yeah.
Um, it's so coaching is like, hey, where are we? Let's own that. And then where do we want to be? And then let's set a course to get through there. When we get into the coaching where we're doing couples coaching, a lot of times the same arguments will happen, obviously in coaching that happen at the house. But what can be different is this. So um, let's imagine that your favorite fight with Herschel is the position of the toilet seat. I was raised, you just close the damn thing because that just ends all. My dad figured this out. It's like you can just end all arguments. You just close the whole thing all the time, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and my dad's stance and mine too is if you don't look where you sit down at night, well, then that's on you, right?
That's
But every different home has a different, position that's the proper one, right? So let's say that you guys have fought about that for 10 years, and we're right back to where we started this call. You're probably not
mm,
hearing anything he's saying about it. He's not really hearing anything you're saying about it, right? So you come on the call and we start talking about this. What will happen often is I will then take the position of Herschel. If his
uh-huh.
position is, hey, you leave the thing up and you never close the toilet, then I'll start talking about that. Well, what's wrong with that, Mary Ellen? And you'll start talking to me, right? And you'll just come with your normal argument of how dumb that is, and I'll
Hmm.
talk it through with you. Now, here's what happens though: a new dynamic happens, right?
Yeah.
When you're arguing with Herschel, you guys have 10 years of history. You're not really hearing each other. When you're arguing with me, we don't have that history. I'm really listening to what you have to say. You'll hear what I have to say because I'm going to say it in new words that Herschel doesn't
Hmm.
use.
Right.
What's happening to Herschel? Here's what's really fun. Another man is now talking to his wife in words very similar to the words he probably has used for a long time.
And getting a different result.
Yeah, but guess whose team Herschel's on in that scenario? Not mine. He's on your team because his natural instinct when another man is talking to his wife is to protect his wife. So when you and I are talking back and forth, guess who hears what you're saying in a totally new way?
Gotcha.
Because he's going to make sure that I'm not stepping on you or doing anything, to hurt his wife.
Right.
So he'll
Right.
suddenly hear this whole thing with brand new ears. And very often we hear things like, wow, I never thought of that. And then you'll hear the wife say,
Yeah.
and it goes both ways. Okay. This is not
Sure.
just a man.
Sure.
You hear the wife say, how could you have never heard that? Because he's never been put in a position where he's on your team in that argument. When you're just alone at home, it's just somebody's got to be right. Right. So one of the other things
Mhm.
that destroys relationships is the need to be right.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
right and wrong will destroy. Now, I am not saying that there is no right and wrong. Like, people get
Sure.
really twisted about this.
Sure.
There is. I am saying that being obsessed with what's right and what's wrong will destroy a relationship. Because anytime I'm right, you have to be wrong, and anytime you're right, I have to be wrong, and
Right.
we will naturally fight. We will naturally fight ourselves not to be wrong. Your mind is what? Your mind is the most sophisticated survival tool of all time, right? It's like the ultimate survival knife, right? It has
Mhm.
all the attachments. It can do anything. Your mind doesn't like to be wrong. In fact,
Right. Right.
your mind
We
can't
innately
be
go
wrong.
against it.
Your mind can't be wrong. Why? Because if it's wrong, you could die. And its job is to keep you alive. So if I'm wrong, I'm going to die. This sounds
Mm,
crazy. If you think about what happens in a suicide, is in order to be right, a mind destroys the person.
yeah.
Like, the mind gets so attached to what's right and wrong that it actually will kill you to be right.
It'll invert it. Huh.
Wild, right?
I never thought
So
about it like that, but yeah.
yeah, so anytime you're in a right and wrong situation with your spouse or with someone you love, right? You are in a never ending struggle of life and death. You don't want to be there. You don't.
Right.
Why? We're not doing that, right? Wood and I, we had a famous. We can be very volatile, right? We both speak our mind. We both have very little filter. We're both not afraid to go all the way there on anything. And I remember we had this really volatile fight. Now, I grew up in a tough home. I have these like real insecurities that she's going to leave. I don't understand why she's with me sometimes, right? She slams the door, yelling, and then the door opens, and I'm thinking like, is she going to leave me? Oh my gosh. And she says, don't even go to your stupid, insecure place. You're stuck with me. And then she slams it. Right. And that was one of the
That's a
moments in my
good
marriage.
one.
It's like, oh yeah, okay. Like, we're all right. I'm
We're
stuck
gonna
with,
be okay.
cool.
We're just having a bump.
Like, this
Yeah.
sucks. And all right, we're going to find our way through this. It's right and wrong will have you where it's a battle of good and evil.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to figure out who's good. And if you're good, he's evil. And he's going to have to figure out who's good. And if he's good, you're evil. It's not going to
Yeah.
work. So what you can go to instead of being rooted in right and wrong, and this is really true for anything, any place that you're in conflict, is if you can get out of right and wrong and you can get into working, not working.
Okay.
What's working, what's not working.
Right.
Now,
You just
here's the
make
fun part.
adjustments to get the result you want because you're not getting it. So you just have to
The fun part
recalibrate.
about working, not working is right, wrong still fits in there.
Okay.
So if you're a very religious person, you may believe like, hey, following Jesus is what's right.
Mhm.
And then you're going to meet a Muslim, and guess what they believe?
Right.
I mean, Jesus was cool, but really, following the
This
Quran
other right.
is what's right.
Right.
Now, if you're going to have a conversation about what's right and wrong, you're not going to get anywhere. You're just going to go, and you're going to just hate each other more and more until somebody throws a punch or a brick or, whatever you see happening in the news today about any number of
Yeah.
things, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, the violence of peace protesters, right? But it's natural because it's a natural progression because we're stuck in right and wrong. That's where it goes. It'll end up in war. That's our
Yeah.
nature. What if we step back from right and wrong and we say, hey, well, what works for me? Like, what's working, not working?
Right.
One person can still be Christian and believe, but because of what they think is right or wrong, what works for them is to follow Jesus. And this
Okay.
other person can think, hey, I'm going to follow the Quran and Muhammad. Cool. And then they can have a conversation across that of what works and doesn't work about that for each of them.
Hmm.
And now we can create solutions together, we used to be really good at this as human beings. Like, it's actually why we took over the Neanderthals, right? We could imagine together, we could imagine a common future, and we worked to get there. But we're kind of losing this skill right now. And it's
Yeah.
so important for us to get back to working, not working. Because think about it. When you say, hey, Herschel, leaving the toilet seat up at night is wrong.
Right.
How's he going to feel? I mean, immediately, right? It's going to be some weird justification. You're going to hear stories about how his great 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 grandma, you know, almost died because someone closed the lid, and that's why we keep it open. And then you're going to have a story of something that, you know what I mean? It's just there's no end to it because he's got to prove that he's right, and
Hmm.
you are going to hang on to that you're right. Where if you say, "Hey, Herschel, the toilet seat being up all night doesn't work for me,"
Yeah.
man, totally different conversation. You know how much blame you put on him? Zero.
Well, and I usually try and when I'm and this is just in general from for
Yeah.
our relationship, but the way that I term it or frame it is I include the result I want. So with the if you do XY, the result will be this, and that's what I would like. If I go
Right.
ahead and speak the result that I want,
Well, that
he
helps. That's super
automatically
smart. Yeah, that's super smart with guys anyway, because we're always
yeah,
wanting to produce a result. I mean,
yeah,
for women, if you want a way to make your guy happy, give him an easy win. Like
yeah.
give us a task, give us a
Oh,
quest.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
You
I
know, hey,
lists abound. Yeah.
and then
They
and then
actually
don't
like lists. They like marking them off. I mean,
but don't tear us apart about how we did it if we did it. It's
that's
okay
the
to come
catch.
back around later and say, hey, I'd rather this. But you know, if you give me something to do, I do it, and then you tear me apart about how I did it, I'm probably not going to do it again. It's not many times. You know what I mean? It's just not going to work because again, you're making me feel impotent about something I thought I completed. It's okay. It's okay to have that, but it's like, hey, thanks for doing that. And next time, could we? Perfect. Just that little thing is like, okay, you accomplished something, but I also want this thing on the side of it.
Right.
Right. Because we often tell people the things we want, assuming they will understand how we want them. Right.
Yeah.
We
Because it's
we don't.
obvious. The path is obvious to us. Why wouldn't they see it? Why wouldn't they
Yeah.
do that
My
same?
wife would used to say, like, well, I just want you to see the mess and fix it. And I'm like, I won't ever. It doesn't bother me. I'm here to be with you guys. I have limited time with you guys. If there's a stack of laundry one shirt deep or 30 shirts deep, I don't care. It doesn't, that has no pull on me whatsoever. What I
Right.
see is my wife and my kids. That's what I want to be with. Now, if it's important to my wife and kids that I pick up those shirts, cool. Okay, I can figure that out. But I'm never going to see it. I'm never going to just naturally have the same feeling you have about it.
Yeah.
So can we figure out a way that works for both of us? Again, see, it's not, she's not wrong. I'm not right. There's not a
Right.
wrong way to think about laundry. There's not a right way to think about laundry. There's just what's working for us in our relationship. And it reminds us that we're in a relationship. We're constantly negotiating
Yeah.
what works and doesn't work.
Yeah.
And that can change, right? Like not only, and
Yeah.
over time that can change. Hey, I used to hate this, but now I like it. What does that mean? How do we make that work? The other cool thing is when something works for you and it doesn't work for your husband, cool, like that's okay. And then you can negotiate from there who gets it when, or uh tacos will always work for my wife. Always, and sushi or barbecue will never work for her, right? She's just never going to want that. And so we play the funny, like, where do you want to go eat game, right? and
All
and
couple.
sometimes, now this is not estrogen, this is more of an energy thing. Feminine energy doesn't really always know what it wants. Masculine energy
Yeah.
knows what it wants, right? This is energy, not, this is a different conversation. But sometimes my wife is hoping I'll tell her what she wants. So, hey, what do you want to eat? I don't know, what do you want? But she's not really asking what I want. She wants me to guess what she wants, right? And I usually give her three guesses. When we play the restaurant
We'll
guessing
do
game.
this.
I know. When we play the restaurant guessing game, I do this. I say I give her two real good tries, and then the third try is always barbecue because she doesn't like barbecue. So I'm like, fuck it.
So we'll
By the
pick the
third
thing
time, we're just gonna
that'll
do what I
force her
want.
into it.
I'm gonna, but what we've learned though, and this is so important in communication, is she's learning, and at I do the same thing at other times in other ways, right? She's learning to say I don't know what I want, and I think sometimes also that feels like a weak thing to say. Hey, what do you
Yeah.
want to eat? I don't know what I want.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So do you want me to just go where I want, or do you want me to try to figure out what you want, or do you want me to tell you what you want and let's see how you feel about it? Because the second I pick a place, she suddenly knows what she wants, right?
Yep.
As soon as I say we're going here and I get excited about it, now she knows what she really wants.
Yeah.
Right?
Sorry.
No worries, no worries. And that's that's okay. That's cool. Again, who's right, who's wrong, I don't care. It doesn't matter. Like for our relationship, what works? That's what matters. What's working, what's not working.
One other thing that because Herschel and I both studied communications in college. So we had a lot of the same professors and we were digging into that. So that was early in our dating and then we got married right after. So that was a godsend that we both were studying the same things on that level. But one of the things when we're arguing about something, like you said, like you'll ask the question, you don't get the answer you want, and then they'll go back in and ask another 2 rounds. And by that 3rd round, then you have a problem. So by round 2, usually one of us will stop and go, "So what I'm hearing you say is," and then you repeat it and automatically the person will pick up the holes of what they're not getting
Yeah. So
across rather than continuing the argument. It
one
short
of the best
circuits it.
ways to argue, like one of the best ways to argue, is can you tell the person back what they just said in a way that they like it?
Right.
Before you make your point, before if you're coming to me and you're saying, "Hey, the toilet seat should always be closed," right? And I
Right.
disagree. Can I articulate back to you exactly what you said in a way that you like it? And if I can't, then I don't get to say my side until I can. And we'll do this with couples a lot of times. Like, well, because a lot of
Oh,
times,
wow.
a lot of times what happens is this happened with some clients not that long ago. The woman was saying, you know, he made me tea and that missed the point. And really, she wanted a hug or something, right? It wasn't, he made me tea. And all he heard is he made the tea wrong. And so what was happening is he knew that she wanted this tea made and made her feel loved. She wanted a hug, but every time she would say the tea's not the point, he was hearing you messed up the tea. So he became like this
Ah,
crazy tea expert. And the truth is she didn't give a damn about the tea. She just wanted him to be there. And what did T do? T put him in the room, and then they like. And so over
gotcha.
time, she wanted to kind of drop the ruse of the T and just be together. But he didn't see that. He was unwilling to let go of the T because that was how he was right. Right. So again, we often don't hear. So when she says, "Hey, it's not about the T," what are you hearing her say?
Right.
I'm hearing her say that I make the T wrong, and that's the problem.
Right.
Hey, is that what you're saying? No.
Yep.
Okay, so what are you saying? Now, whose fault is that? No one. It's not
Right. It's
anyone's fault.
miscommunication. Nobody set out, and that's one of the things that I'm lucky that we constantly reiterate that discussion of, we'll argue about a behavior, but it's not personal. It's not that we ever don't love each other or ever don't. It's always, this is the behavior and this is how it's making me feel. Or this is, because it's always in an interpersonal, it's almost always about a feel.
Well,
Results are a little
so
bit different, but you know what I,
no, no, no,
because
no, no.
even
We have
even the
we have super deep feelings. I hate when people
yeah,
say that.
yeah,
We
men
have
do.
super deep feelings.
Yes.
We have less
Yes.
societal allowed ways to express those because many of the ways we express those feelings are like with grunts or
Right. There's a
body
code.
language or
There's a grunt code.
anger. Like, what's wrong with anger? I mean, I get that like punching people randomly for no like if but feeling anger, what's wrong? Nothing's wrong with that, right? Anger is the
Right.
energy of change. It's just I don't like this. I want it to stop. Like there's nothing wrong
Yeah.
with anger in and of itself. How you act with it, sure, there's lots of wrong, but there's lots of wrong ways to act with guilt, and there's lots of wrong ways to act with love and lust, and like every emotion has ways that are constructive to use it and ways that are destructive to use it,
Hmm.
right? And so I don't think that it's that men don't feel. I just think that we're socially a little bit less adept at explaining it, and
Yeah.
it's kind of landmine times right now. I mean, it just
Yes.
is, and I'm not giving us an excuse. I just step on them, and then they explode, and then we just figure it out. But it's, I mean, being masculine is not the coolest thing right now, and unfortunately, because it's desperately what the world needs right now. It's just some men to be
Um,
men and
being
make some
feminine
space.
isn't either. That's the thing. Neither of them are actually, and I don't think either of them are in their true energy right now. Hardly.
Well,
Like
why?
as a collective.
So why? Again, we go back to where we started. We
Yeah.
created this fake world on top of the real
Yeah.
world. And guess what
Yeah.
that fake world does? That fake world is very feminine.
Yeah.
That fake world is all about community. That fake world is all about looks. We like to see looks, right? Like
Sure.
again,
Sure.
so it is a fake world that is easier to manipulate men in and actually plays to all the natural strengths of women more, right? If you look at who's making the money, like influencers and stuff, sure, there's lots of men making money. A lot of them also by using women, frankly.
Yeah.
That fake world is just
Yeah.
better suited. It just naturally fits better. Why? Because we're
It's
naturally better at
exploiting.
like,
It's
well, I
very
don't know.
exploitive.
Okay, it can be. Yeah, it can be.
And
I don't know that it's
they
exploited,
exploit themselves also. I'm
which to me means not exploited, right? If
okay.
you exploit me, right? If you exploit me, cool. But if I exploit myself, it's just I don't know that that's exploitation.
Okay.
I'm just making a choice, and it has a consequence, right?
Yes, they
But
do.
again, where do men do better? Like there's a reason that 99% of roofers are men. There's a pile of crap. It needs to get up to there and get tacked down. Like it's very task
Yeah.
oriented, very physically
Yeah.
intensive. We love that shit. We love it. I mean, we do.
Yeah.
There's something about it. You take a group of high level executives, and you get them to go do a bunch of physical labor. They're feeling good. Why? Because it's in our DNA. We
Yeah.
like it, but that's not right now. What's dominating is this imaginary social world.
Yeah. I would agree. I would agree. Yeah, I'd say for couples, diffuse your argument early on so it never gets heated. I mean, sometimes the heat is good, sometimes the making up is good, but for petty shit, just ask them to stop, take a breath, remind them that you love them. You're frustrated about this particular thing, and frame it as in, this is what I'm hearing you say, and this is how it makes me feel, or whatever
Right.
version
Well,
of that works for you.
what we hear and what is said, can be the same thing and often aren't. Even so that, and then again, going back to where we started, a lot of times we understand the word. This is
Yeah.
why text message is so elusive, right? Because you understand the
Yeah.
words, but depending on the tone you imagine, the
Yep.
words say different
Or
things.
the facial expressions, all of it play a huge I
Yeah,
hate, and that's a lot of why I don't use social media, and I prefer video form.
sure.
Like, rather than just doing a Substack or something, I would rather do video because people can see it. I interpret so much better when I can see their expressions, their tone, everything.
Yeah, I mean, are you kidding me? Is one of those ones. It's like, are you
Oh,
kidding me? Or are
yeah.
you kidding me? But in a
Just
text, it's all dependent on what the mental state of the person
right.
receiving it at that moment.
And
And
who the
that's
hell knows?
who. Yeah, exactly. And it just we don't. And all the emojis in the world, like I don't understand the emoji code. They're better. I mean, they help certainly, right? Emojis are. Here's what I do in text messages when I know they're touchy and I know that I don't have another choice but to text is I'll literally write at the beginning of a text, tone, supportive and helpful because I want to help.
That's
Then I write
actually
what
a
I
good
want to
idea.
write. And as dumb as it sounds, it works
No,
really
that's
well.
good. That's good,
Hey,
especially if
this
you're
is
having a
being
certain
said in a tone
discussion.
of
Yeah,
sarcasm, and then I say it, right? And then now, okay, as dumb as
that's
it
really
sounds, it
good.
works pretty well if you want to be understood, right?
Yeah, I think that's
Because so
great.
often I don't know that we're ever really hearing what other people say because
Mhm.
we're hearing what the words they're saying, we're interpreting it through the filter of our life and our life experience and what that
Yeah.
means to us, and then we're having a reflection, right? Like Byron Katie is famous for saying the best thing about other people's feelings is I can't feel them. Like you can't feel other people's feelings. You can feel your equivalents of when they're telling a
Yes.
story. When they're telling a story, you're imagining that, and then that creates a feeling response in you. So you're imagining what they're feeling. That you
Mhm.
feel your feeling about that in response, but that isn't really their feeling.
Yeah.
That's just your imagined feeling. And you, hey, the closer you are to them, you can say, well, I have empathy. Maybe you've been in that situation. Cool. But you're still experiencing your version of that and not their version of that. And it's so important to remember that. That's good.
Yeah.
That's
That's
not a
true.
bad thing. So you're just like, hey, what are you trying to say? But again, that's a dangerous phrase to put it there. It's here's what I hear you saying, and
Right.
then wait until you get agreement. That's so frustrating in the middle of an
Yeah.
argument about a toilet seat. But what I hear you saying is, and then when that person says, yeah, that's what I'm saying, now make your point. Because now you're making your point from a place of real understanding, which gives you a greater percent chance of a good outcome. It doesn't guarantee it. But if you can play that game, it's really, really long until it's short, because
Yeah.
it's, I think as Stephen Covey talked about, with people, long is short and short is long. A
Uh-huh.
quick solution to emotional problems is going to take you way longer than something that's a little thought out. Why? Because those emotions are going to come back up. We
Yeah.
can't just schedule to have our emotions from 8:55 to 9:03 and then move on, right? And so
Wouldn't that
taking a
be
little time,
nice?
oh man, taking a
That
little
would free
time
up
with
so much
people
time.
saves us months down the road and months of resentment.
Yes. Yes, it could.
So I don't know. I don't know if I covered what you wanted to talk about with all of this, but it really is. There are different biologies at work, right?
Yeah.
And look, and everybody inside of that has their own biology in there. So there's this is
Yeah.
I'm speaking in super general terms, right?
Yep.
But
Yep.
general terms that really resonate with most people I've come into contact with. And then inside of that, there's 1,000 different subgroups.
Yeah, I think probably where our discussion would land, I would say maybe an 80 percentile, maybe a 20% that might be on a different spectrum or something. But I think the bulk of it, yeah. Because I mean, and it always drives me nuts because they really should have focused on how to communicate and how to do this when we were in school.
Yeah.
There
Well,
should have
first off,
there should have been.
I don't know that they even understood it. I
Probably
don't know
not.
that they even understand it now,
Your
right? But let's
average
be
teacher
real.
doesn't.
Your normal school is set up to make you compliant, not to teach you something super fantastically exciting, right?
Yep.
That's why we're involved in the Apogee schools.
Yes.
If you go to
Yes.
apogeeschools.com, you can see
Yes,
what we're
please
doing that's
plug it.
different.
Apogee's
No, no, I
fantastic.
mean, it's all about reseeding freedom in our country. The
Yep.
education system has brought about this lack of freedom because
Yep.
people are running to the authority to make them safe because they learned that in
Right.
school, and we've learned it now for generations in school. It doesn't work. School
Nope.
doesn't prepare you for life. School
I
prepares you
think
for
it
more
makes you
school.
dumber
Yeah, it just prepares you for
in a
more
lot of
school.
yeah,
Life isn't like check the boxes and everything great happens. That's
yeah.
not life. I wish it was. I mean, I wish it was. I wish that was life because I could dominate that. And I did well in school. But the truth is that's not how life works. Life is do your best job. When things go sideways, figure it out.
Yeah,
And school
yeah.
doesn't teach you to do that at all. Quite the opposite.
No, I think it makes it harder. But I don't know. I'm sure Apogee teaches communication. I'm sure I haven't looked at
100%.
their curriculum things, but
100%.
I how is communicate like, it should be as important as math. I mean, really. We
It's
use it
well,
more.
honestly, it's more important than math because that's how you learn math is by
That's yeah.
communicating. I
Like
mean,
what is more important than being able to talk to people and being
right,
able to persuade and communicate effectively in everything from your siblings, your parents, your spouse, dating, coworkers, your kids, like what is more used? Like I
right.
communicate way more than I read, on a daily basis and I read voraciously. You know this. You've watched me consume content,
I'm with you.
but I really wish that this was something that focused, and I'm glad I took a lot of it in college because it really opened my eyes. How do you feel about the perspective is reality? How do you
Well,
feel about that
so
theory?
okay, so here's yeah, that's good. I like it because there's so much confusion about this because people again, it's like the transsexual thing, right? We get
Yeah.
so lost in are there two types or are there 57 types, right? And then we have this huge everybody lines up in these false lines of there's only two and then there's only 57. And the truth is there's two with some weird exceptions, like
Yep.
with some things that happen that we have to
Good.
accept because those are real human beings that matter. And God didn't leave them behind. And so I'm not going to leave them behind.
Yeah.
Right. So cool. So we have to get out of the false dichotomies. Like we have to get out of this concept of, well, it's either this or that, And so when you get into like, is perception reality? The answer is yes and no,
Right.
or no
It's a
and
trick
yes. So
question every time.
right, but the reason is there objective truth? Yes. This table is objectively there. You can come and touch it. My son can come and touch it. My wife can touch it. If you're blindfolded and you run into it, it will bump you.
Yeah,
Right? A
you'll have a
bird from
bruise.
outside could fly in and hit it. Right? It's
Yep.
objectively there. But each of us is experiencing this table in our own personal reality.
Yeah.
And so our thoughts about the table, our exact perceptions. I may love this wood grain. You may think it's horrible. When I touch it, it may do a certain thing, feel a certain way. And to you, it may feel a certain different way.
Yep.
The limitation of objective truth is that none of us is the monopoly or ultimate authority on what it is. And
Right.
so all of us experience objective truth through our own perspective and lens.
Based on our history, our I hate the term lived experience, but it's
No,
applicable here.
but it's true.
It is.
It even in the places where I don't like those words,
It's
that
applicable.
is one part of the truth. It's
Yes.
just that what is happening right now is everybody wants to look at a thread and say that's the truth, and no one wants to see the tapestry that is reality.
Yes.
And
Yes.
the truth is a thread, but there's a tapestry of what's happening.
Yeah.
And two people can experience the same thing very differently. Very differently. There's a
Yep.
whole subset of sexual activity that's based on being slapped. That's not my thing. I don't like being slapped in the face. Not for me. Who's right?
That's
I don't
crazy.
know. I mean, just don't
Yeah.
slap me. That's not going to work for me. That's not
Ugh.
that doesn't turn me on, but there's people who love it. So who's right? I don't know. But I can tell you objectively, you can be slapped. What does that slap mean? It was Marcus Aurelius who said, what hurts when you're slapped in the face is not the slap in the face. It's the belief that you ought not to have been slapped in the face. That's what actually hurts. What actually hurts you is the belief that was unjustified.
Okay. I see. I see
This
where
is
you're going.
one of the perceptions, right? So one of the problems, we've been talking a lot about men and women. One of the problems with the whole man woman conversation is that I'll never be a woman and you'll never be a man, right? And some of the things that men like and expect are not things that women like and expect.
Yeah.
So aggressive behavior. I say
Yeah.
something, we're doing this, and then people aggressively saying something the opposite way. For masculine energy, we like that because we don't
Yeah.
want to make a mistake. What's more important than anything? The result. So me and you might not like each other, and we might be really uncomfortable for a few minutes, but if that makes the result better, we're cool.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, I don't care if we like each other. I like that but we got to do this thing,
Right. That
right? Like,
that I think is how leaders have to get shit done.
well, right. But
You know?
sometimes when a woman comes into the workforce and then a man very aggressively disagrees with her, she'll see that, well,
Right.
he doesn't respect me, but he would have done that
Right.
with anyone else.
Yeah.
And other
He
people
was
may have liked
behaving
it.
and they'll be
It's just kind
perceived
of
as
how
a
we treat it.
bully, but they're like that with everybody.
Well,
So are they
one
a
of our
bully or are they
problems.
just doing it? I don't know.
So here's the thing: one of our problems, right, in society right now, we
Yeah.
all want to live the golden rule, right?
Right.
Why? Treat others like you want to be treated. What if they don't like that? I mean, really?
That's
Like,
true.
I should treat others like so I should treat my wife like I like to be treated? That's not going to work well. And
Yeah.
if she treats me like if she treats me how she wants to be treated, sometimes that'll
Yeah.
overlap, but many times it does not.
I can see exactly some quick pitfalls. When I
And
always think of
so,
go ahead.
go ahead. No, it's
N-
just so you have to kind of graduate to like a platinum rule, which is I want to treat other people how they want to be treated,
mhm.
as long
Yep.
as that doesn't violate who I am. And I mean, I've got to have integrity in
Sure.
who I am. And
Sure. Absolutely.
in a vacuum of information, okay, I might fall back to the golden rule because I don't know. But be careful.
You
In
never know.
America, staring at someone is rude. Like if you're just in a restaurant, you just start staring, like we'll call it ogling or
Right.
like
Glancing
mean
is one thing,
mugging.
but perpetual
Right.
staring, it will make us uncomfortable.
In France, that's not rude. Their kind of general belief is if you don't want to be looked at, don't step outside. Like you didn't have to be at the restaurant. There you
Don't
are.
look cute. You
You
should have
look
dumbed it
beautiful.
down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Right. You look beautiful. Why wouldn't I want to
Don't
look at a
wear
beautiful
heels and
person?
a short skirt if you don't want people looking at your legs.
So
It's true.
here's what happens. Here's what happens when an American goes to France and they notice a French person staring at them for whatever reason, because probably they like what they're seeing, right? What do we typically do if we catch someone staring at us? What do? We stare back. We send a clear message, right? That, hey man, I see you staring at me, and that's not cool. Stop staring at me.
Yeah.
And we do that by staring back. I don't know why, but it's just kind of our way of doing it. And if that doesn't work, then we might say something or turn around or something like that.
Yeah.
Right? So the Frenchman's staring at you. What do? You stare back. What is he thinking? Oh, she's interested in me too. Because staring's not rude there. it's just not.
And then they'll come up and perpetuate the.
So in his mind, things are going really well.
Yeah,
and in your mind, what the hell's wrong with this guy?
Yeah.
So there is an objective truth of what's happening, but who has the monopoly on what it is? Neither of the people in this scenario. Both of them are kind of right and wrong. So when we talk about like, is perception reality? Perception is your reality. Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
It has to be. But we have to constantly question our perceptions.
Yes.
And we don't. Like
yes.
we just don't. We accept what we perceive. We decide that it's true. We only go look at things that we agree with. Right. I do this thing in the morning, and it's not a perfect thing, but I think I've told you about it before. It's like even getting my news, I don't trust anything anymore. So I quickly look at Fox News, CNN, and Drudge, right? And if something's on all three, then I'm interested in that. If it's not on all three, I don't give a damn. That is like a quick and easy, like what if all three of these places are talking about the same thing, maybe it's worth like a 10-minute little read, right?
And it's rare they're ever talking about the same thing, though. You'll get two out of three.
It's rare that any of the news actually matters at all anymore. I mean, frankly, it's our news cycle's so short. It's like there's not enough time for things to matter anymore.
I feel like we're living TikTok. Like everything speeds through at light, and I feel like everything is speeding up in the news cycle. And it gets memory hold so fast, especially the really important stuff. It gets glossed over and it's gone. And yeah, I feel like the news cycle's becoming perpetually like TikTok, which is not good. It's not good.
It has been for a long time, right? It has been for a long time. I just, again, when we're talking about objective truth, is there objective truth? Yes. Who is the person who sees all objective truth? Maybe God. And then down here, we're going to have a big debate about whether that's true or not. So right there, the one person who could know, we already have a big question about, most of us, like, how does that exactly work? So there is a reality that is outside of me, right? Life exists outside of me.
Right.
I only experience that reality through me.
Right.
So there's no get out of jail free card where it's like, well, no, there's an objective truth and I see it. Really? You see it? So here's how I can prove that. You ready? Super easy to prove that what I'm saying is true.
Okay.
Color blindness. People who are colorblind experience a very different world than me. I'm not. Yeah. And people who are colorblind experience a very different world from me. And no matter how many things you give me on the internet or whatever to know what that's like, I won't. Like I can't see that world. I can't see it the way they see it. Yeah. It's not how I'm built. Who's right? Well, neither of us is really right because theirs is a certain distortion. Mine is a distortion that most people share, but it doesn't mean it's the gold standard of how to see the world. And how do I know that what looks like blue to me isn't orange to you? And we just both learned that's the thing. Like, I don't know. I don't know if your eyes see it the same as mine. I mean, I assume it, but I don't know.
But how do you know? And how could they even know to tell you if that's all they've ever seen? They've never seen the other. Like, how would they know to tell you that's, yeah. These are the kind of things that I find fascinating.
But this is where school screws us up because school says someone does know and they feed us those bits of information and we should mimic them.
There's an expert over here and the expert wrote this textbook. So you better memorize that textbook.
Right.
And don't question it. Just memorize it.
I mean, we're living 1984 and on a different scale, thank God, but not much different, unfortunately. But we really are. Like here's the new words you can't say, and here's the new words you can't say, and here's, and then we're going to loop all the way around. So one of the words we couldn't say when I was 20 now is the word you have to say when I'm 60. Yes. This is weird.
Yes. Like when I was in school, if you called a person black, they got mad. You had to say African American. Right. And now it's the opposite.
But I think we're getting smart because this is, again, a lot of times we were smarter back then than we are now. And I think we're realizing, there's this new thing. It's not really African American. Like black culture is not African. It
Not
is.
not
It is people of African origin who forged a new, really strong, interesting culture
yes.
that is not
Yes.
African anymore, right?
It's so
It got
different. And I
broken
mean,
up and then forged into this new thing
yeah.
by
Yeah.
slavery and by like it.
Yep.
They had a very unique, even though slavery is very common throughout history, that particular crucible was very unique. It created a
Yeah.
very unique culture,
Yes.
and I think black is the right word, because they
Excuse me.
created a new culture. Like that's this own
Yeah.
thing because it
Yeah.
doesn't translate back. You don't bring that back to Africa and then it's like, oh yeah, look, just like home. No, it's not that at all. It's a new
Well,
thing, which
yeah,
is
and
actually way
I think
harder
it's
than just taking your old culture forward, right? When you think about it, it's an incredible feat.
and there's so much about this new forged culture that's beautiful and cool. Like jazz and the blues and I mean there's so much depth that's come from this that's beautiful. Yeah, and I feel like that's yeah, it disregards it. I
Well,
agree.
we're never going to get there, but the truth is, we can get there for ourselves. Is
Yeah.
perception reality? Yes and no. There is an objective reality. Many times, what I perceive to be 100% sure is not true. For example, I am in my second marriage, so I'll always be with you. Turns out, no, right? And so my perception was not reality, right?
Things change and evolve
Yeah,
always.
they do. They do.
Always. Well, tell me a little bit about your coaching adventure as we're wrapping up. Um, where can they, if they want to have a conversation with you or seek advice, how can they
Sure.
find you? What do
If
you
you want to
do?
reach out to me
Like,
personally, you can check out itscoachkevin.com.
mhm.
Really, right now, I am all Apogee Strong all the time. So you can check out apogeestrong.com. Been working with Matt Bodrow and Tim Kennedy
Yep.
to revolutionize, and I don't mean a bloodless revolution, not, I don't mean have protests, like to actually create schools that are there to create free thinking, powerful
Yes.
individuals who can get things done and who can create, not just check boxes that then find out that they were the wrong boxes and you can't get the job you thought you could,
Yeah.
right? Create a system of education,
Yeah.
not a school, right?
Critical thinking, problem solving.
Something that looks like a home that produces and not like a jail, right? The school system was created to control. I mean, it just was.
Yep.
And that's
It
why
was.
prisons were created to control. And then when you start looking at the architecture, even they look very similar. Why? They have the same purpose,
Yeah.
right? They just do. And I wish that wasn't true. It wasn't
Yeah.
always like that, but it right now is. There's a lot of amazing people in education, the people
Yeah.
themselves, but the teachers and administrators are just as trapped as the students, maybe
Yeah.
more, because they got 20 years of a career in there. And what do? It used to be a teacher could be like, oh, kids need this, we're going to deviate.
Yeah.
They can't deviate 3 words anymore without getting written up or whatever. So it's not about the people in it. It's about the system itself has a problem. Its
Yeah.
intent was to create compliant employees. And it was based on a system
Yeah.
that's intent was in Prussia to create compliant soldiers, people who were smart enough to take orders, but too dumb to question them.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
not different today. It just isn't. I wish that it was. We have a documentary there. I highly recommend you watch it at apogeestrong.com. I started, your husband and I created that, and we started a documentary. I told Matt, I was like, hey man,
It's a great
I'm keeping
documentary.
my kids are successful in school. Have really liked the school system. I don't want to leave the school system just because I'm doing this with you. And he's like, no, it's cool to have your own path. After 40 hours of interviews, I was like, I can't get my kid out fast enough. I mean, I can't believe this stuff is true, because I
Yeah.
started following up. I'm like, man, this can't be true. The man
Yeah.
who invented the standardized test was fired from his university presidency for refusing to administer standardized tests because they were a terrible judge of intellect.
Yeah.
Go look that up. He invented the
Yeah.
standardized test and was fired because by the end of his life he refused to administer them because he said this
It was
doesn't
a
work.
great mistake. Yeah.
And yet our entire system is based on this, and it doesn't work, and it's not
No.
working, and we can see it. It's so weird. It's become like this religious cult almost, where we all see that this is the problem, but none
Yeah.
of us can accept that this is the problem because it's the free babysitting and it's the system we went through. And it's like I often think this, like, surgeons are they have these crazy shifts where they're awake for 48 hours and sometimes
Yeah.
72 hours, and because they've always done it, that's the way you do it. But I'm like,
Yeah.
man, we don't let Mack truck drivers do that, and they're not
Right.
cutting
But
people
you'll have a
open. And
surgeon do it.
yeah, that's crazy. Like,
It
but
is.
but they've always done it that way, and that's just part of it. And so we've all been kind of indoctrinated by the system, and it's scary to me because as I got out, as my mind started to see the objective reality, which I wasn't
Yeah.
perceiving, I was like,
Because
wow.
well, and it was a little bit different when we were going through. It was
It is a
still
very different system.
it's
Yep,
it's
but it's
been
still the system.
shrinking and choking itself
It's
consistently.
still the system though. You're still looking
Yes.
for
You're s
who has the authority to tell you what.
yes. Yes.
Who
It
can
still is.
certify that I'm good enough to work? Who can certify that I'm
Right.
good enough in English? Who can? Well, why do
Yeah.
you need someone to say? Can you talk? Like, think about this, Mary. Where is your degree in walking? No, you're a pretty damn accomplished walker if you think about it.
I'm pretty good at
You're
walking.
at
Yeah.
least as good at. I mean, I've seen you walk. You walk as
Yeah.
well as the next person, and
I didn't
yet no one's
fall.
ever certified. No one's ever certified or given you a piece of paper that says you can walk. That is what is wrong with you.
Right.
Right? When, in anything that matters, we all learned English. English is one of the most complex, hard languages to learn
Yeah.
on the planet. I mean, maybe
Yeah.
Chinese is harder objectively, but not much. Like,
It's
it's
about the only
tough.
one. Yeah.
Who taught you that? You just listened to the people around you and you figured it out. And I know eventually you went to school and you learned to talk about past participle and all, but that was just giving words to things after you already knew how to do it. You were just figuring
Yeah.
out what it was. It
Yeah.
wasn't that you learned to speak. You needed to speak, and even to go like the way who is it? It's Nassim Taleb in Anti-Fragile. He says that professors, they write a paper, they write papers to certify that birds can fly, right?
Yeah.
But the truth is, birds have been flying for a long time. Like, we don't need to lecture birds on how to fly. And it's the same thing with genius. Like, have you ever think it's weird that like
Yeah.
every 4-year-old you've ever met, you're like, wow, that kid is special.
Right.
But then think about how many 7-year-olds you think that about. Because all of a sudden, once you're 7, everything goes through school, and it's like, well, what are your
Yeah.
grades? What?
Yeah.
Wait a second. What? Like, we were all
Right.
geniuses, and then most of us were dumb? I don't think so. We all just entered into this weird crucible that's not designed for what real modern life
Yeah.
is anymore.
And so many of their creative and beautiful things I see get snuffed out the older they get in the system. Like you'll send one in, like you said, about 5 or something, and they're just this whole bundle of energy, and you're thinking, "Oh, man, I can't wait to see what they go into and do." And then by about middle school, they're really shrinking their
But
capabilities.
well,
And then
they're
by
just
high school,
fitting
they're just
into the
flipping burgers, and
yeah, they're just fitting into the
it's
mold
just
that's there for
yeah,
them.
they're just that's what I meant when I was saying it's contracting and shrinking
Yeah.
it. It
Because each of us is our own genius, just in a way. You're a genius in a way that I never could be, and there's 8 billion of us like that. I mean, there
yeah,
just are.
we should
But
be able to accomplish a lot.
do we need some basic standard stuff together? Sure. I would like that 2 + 2 = 4 for everybody, and that we don't
Yeah.
all get to pick our own answer. That
I'm pretty
okay,
sure
there's
in
some
some
basic
states
things.
it's 5 now.
But
I'm
that but
pretty sure.
that stuff is simple. That stuff doesn't
Yeah.
take that. One of the students at Apogee Schools, he was so it's learner driven, right? So the learner decides where they're going to go, and then
Right.
everything gets stitched in behind that. And yes, there's always arithmetic and math, but it's if they're interested in starting a business, then they will learn math and stuff through the business. Or if they're
Mhm.
interested in sending rockets to the moon, cool. Well, then you're going to learn this math, right? It's just in time instead of just in case, which is how humans actually learn.
Yeah.
But one of the students was, I don't know if you'd call it insecure or whatever, but like he's like, I want to do the curriculum for K through 12 because I want to know that I did it, because he was going to college, and it's like, well, everyone else did this curriculum. I feel like I should have done it. Right. So his guide inside of the Apogee school says, okay, well, let's figure it out. Like, what does it take and how do you do that? So they found the curriculum. Now he completes this curriculum in 9 months. Every single assignment from K-12. He's
How
15
old
years
was
old.
he?
Now,
15.
15. Now think about this for a second. What the hell do people do with the other 12 years? 9 months is 1 out of 13 years.
Yeah.
Why did it need to take 13 years?
Yeah.
And
Some of the
what
most
else
successful
got
people I
learned?
know are dropouts because they got so damn bored. They dropped out like their sophomore year. They were like, "I can't stand this. I can do something else with my time and
The
generate. Yeah.
institution, what else do they learn? They learn compliance. They learn rely on,
Yes.
and this use, look, read the Constitution and understand that not a single person who wrote that attended a single day of what
Yeah.
we think of as school today. Not
Yep.
even close.
Nope.
They were highly educated. They weren't schooled.
Right.
We're super schooled, but
Yeah.
have people gotten smarter since compulsory school? The reading,
Everything's
since
gone down
compulsory
year after
school,
year.
the reading, the literacy level has gone down.
Yep. Yep. Department of
Period.
Education, I since its inception, the numbers have dropped year after year of reading and arithmetic and all of the levels. They fail upward, and they keep getting more money and doing everything for failing everyone, you know. And everybody's so afraid to question the system. At least that's how it used to be. I think people are much more
It's
open about it now,
it's
but
time. It's time to make things exclusive again.
yes.
Our problem is, yes, there was a time we needed to be more inclusive. It's really easy to see. There was a time
Sure.
that we got a little misguided. We got a little weird. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I love when people are like, we got to only go by founders' intent. I'm like, I don't know, because I kind of like women voting, and that wasn't their intent. So you
Right.
can't only go by that. I get it. Like, we needed to be more inclusive. The pendulum has swung way. Like, if nothing is exclusive, then nothing has value.
Right.
Like,
Right.
if everybody wins, we all lost.
No
Like,
Child
that's
Left
just,
Behind was one of the worst things that they
it
put
was so,
in.
and it was so well intentioned. I
It
mean,
was, everybody gets a trophy. All right, snowflakes, everybody's special. Well,
well,
everybody is
well,
special in different ways. We
well,
can't
but
all
that,
be first
but
in
that's
this
the
way.
problem. Is the intention was we're leaving
Yeah.
some kids behind, which was true. So we're going to force this, and then unfortunately, we accidentally slowed everybody down for a long, long time. And so, what I like about being with Apogee and Apogee Strong is that it's about a solution. It's not about tearing down anything. It's not about, it's about, hey, here's the solution. Here is the way to build powerful, sovereign, not just free, but sovereign people who create their own solution
Yeah.
individuals.
Yeah.
And
And
hey,
you're raising
four out of
entrepreneurs.
five of my kids went to school all the way through. I got my last one graduating this month, right?
Yep.
My youngest, he won't do that. Where he's out. This was third grade. Will be his last year of traditional school, and he's
Yep.
going to start leading. He's going to start
Oh,
leading
yeah.
and learning himself the way human beings have done it always. The way
Yep.
George Washington did it, the way Abraham Lincoln did it. That's how he's going to do it. And if that seems weird and crazy, I'm okay with that.
I am too. Liam's a great kid.
He is.
All your kids are good.
Thank you, Mary. Appreciate you having me here. And yes,
Oh,
everybody's a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, that is John Taylor Gottman, I think.
that's
God knows.
Ash. You remember Ash, yeah?
Yeah,
She helped.
absolutely.
She's such a sweetheart. I've been
Absolutely. And
trying
it's,
to look over and read some of the comments. And thank you for the cookie, Ash. I'm sorry
yeah,
I'm so stuffy today. My allergies are just awful.
no
It's a
problem. Well,
spring.
hey, thank you for the time. Happy
Yes.
Mother's Day to everybody. I'm going to go get back to the mother in my life, which is my
Yes.
wife, and I love her to death. But for everyone who is a mother, remember, you are a miracle. Like,
Yeah.
you created life. What the heck does that even mean? I don't know. I'll never know. But I know that I'm really glad you do it. And thank you from the rest of humankind who just enjoys the fruit of that. Thank you for being that miracle.
Yeah. It is a miracle. Thank you so much for coming out with us, Kevin. I really appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you. Always,
All right.
always happy to do it. Thanks, Mary
All
Ellen.
right.
We'll see you.
Take care, dear.
Bye bye.
Ah, man, that was awesome. I'm sorry between camera issues and my sinuses. It's yeah, but oh man, he is so skilled at that. So skilled at that. Well, yep, another Sunday. What we should have learned. Not sure which guest I've got. I'm working on two for next week. Patriot Theater is coming up tonight, and we are doing The Fifth Element and Divergence. Divergence. It's been years since I've seen it, but I love The Fifth Element. Oh, I love it. It's such a fun film. It's like the perfect action film. So please come over and see us. Grab your popcorn. Tell your family that you love them. I'm releasing the scratching. So grab your scratchings. Yep. It's good times, man. It's good times. All right, everybody. Until next week. And I think I'll be on Patriot Theater tonight. And I'll be back on Truth Blitz tomorrow at 1 o'clock. And I'll see you there. Thank you, everybody. Damn it. Come on.